had a great learning understanding from you. But I think one of the questions which actually comes to my mind is, with all these investments that need to happen on AI, digital, where is the cash? So that's exactly what people come up to the CFOs and ask, where is the cash? Can I spend? How much do I spend? What is the ROIs for the spend? So effectively, when we talk about all of this, we are really talking about how do we manage cash flows. I think the CFO's job is one of the easiest jobs in a way, where his only activity is about managing cash, which is about inflow management, about outflow management. Frankly speaking, we talk about so many other jargons. We talk about business partnering, we talk about investor management, we talk about IPOs, we talk about supporting the system. These all can be done by different facets or different functions in the company. But cash is not something which can be managed very easily. So that is really the role of the CFO, where he understands what is coming in, what is going out. So that's the start point, that's the simplicity of the role, that's the complexity of the role. So we need to understand that, and we need to kind of take it forward from there. If I can quickly move to maybe the first slide. They missed out on cash, which was the driving force of what could have really made a difference to them. And somehow, for whatever set of reasons, they really could not perform very well at that stage. So that was probably not a great thing for them. And it also throws back the importance of how cash is and what it is all about. A lot of CFOs are there in the room, I'm sure, and I'm sure during the COVID times, we all had only one objective: how do we conserve cash? So that was the whole objective. At least I can talk about myself very clearly, and I'm sure a lot of you would also be able to relate to it. In uncertain times, be it a pandemic like a COVID, a war-like situation, which fortunately I think most of us have not witnessed it. It's all about the fact that is the company, or does the company have adequate resources to manage and take it forward, which is all about how much cash do I carry. And I can recollect those days during COVID, where me, my CEO, and a couple of other senior leaders in the company, we used to get into a Zoom call and say, do we have the money to pay salaries for the next month? And if not, what is it that we do? And I can kind of tell you very clearly that the leadership team at that point in time, we did not take salaries for 3 months so that we could pay people down the line. End of the day, the feeling was in how do we manage resources, or how do we manage cash for people down. They probably need it more than we do. So the reason I'm kind of mentioning some of these is, all of these lead to ultimately some level of cash flow planning that needs to happen if you were to look at how much of cash do you need. So very simple thing, I'm not kind of trying to take you into anything complex. 3 fundamentals of cash: operating cash flows, financing cash flows, and investing cash flows. So if we are able to manage these, we are able to ride up the cash cycle very well. What do we really need to be doing? How do we ensure that all the 3 streams are in line with our expectations, and we have actions which are planned out in line with some of these activities to be undertaken. Operating cash flows, again, very, very clearly is all about operating efficiencies, your own scale, your own efficiency in operations, your working capital management. How do you bring about efficiencies into those areas? It also requires people to revisit at times, rethink on their business models. Netflix, I'm told at one point of time, was more like a pay-as-you-go model, which changed it to a subscription-based model. Now, some of these are obviously business imperatives, but it has profound implications on your cash flow as well, because you are also able to predict your subscribers, your revenue cycle. A lot of companies, things like, if you were to get back into things like a DTH, which is a digital to home, you do not really operate on a post-paid model. There are no implications of bad debts into that model. Whatever you need to do, you need to pay in advance, and you need to ensure the services are paid. Similarly, there are a couple of other services which actually work on a prepaid kind of a model, because you are eliminating the entire cash collection mechanism, the entire bad debt mechanism. So sometimes as a company you end up taking those calls whereby the decisions are predominantly cash flow oriented. Number of times in our companies, we also, when we face crisis in terms of our cash management, we also undertake cash discounts so that money can come in a bit earlier. One of the biggest nightmares that I feel a CFO really faces is you have a loan or a regulatory payment coming up, or maybe an employee payment coming up, and you are short of cash. So what do you really need to do? Because you are at the helm of affairs. It's not the CEO who is supposed to be looking at this, but it is the CFO's job to ensure that the money is available for the people when they need it, especially when it comes to salaries, or to a financial institution or to a bank, so that the company is not triggering a loan default scenario. So that is a nightmare which at least I have faced, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would have also faced in terms of what is happening if I default. And what do I need to do? We've also seen, again, these are some practical things that I have observed, and I'm sure all of you would have as well. During COVID only I picked it up. There were certain NBFC players who were willing to give you salary advances. And I mean to say salary advances not for you as an individual, but to the company, where a sum of money could be paid to the company for salary disbursements. Obviously everything has to have a fee, but at least you get over the cash crunch cycle. So that was again something very unique that I kind of picked up. Very, very standard things, about factoring, discounting your data. These are all very, very standard products which are there in the market. But then all of these ultimately leads to you improving all your cash flows. So elements which can be worked out very, very clearly on those areas. On the operating cash flow, if you were to look at it, I think one of the key things that I have at least seen when you are trying to improve upon your operating cash flows, fundamentals to that is all about planning. What are you really planning? How are you planning? When are you planning? What is expected to happen? And then as, let's say, managers, as finance professionals get after that like crazy and say whether it is happening or not happening. Because with every inflow, an outflow is already planned out. You really do not have money sitting in, so for you to kind of capitalize and hold on to it, but there is a subsequent payment which is anyway sitting in, which you need to make a payout to. So managing your cash flows is so very important if you do not plan your inflows properly. The second part, obviously, which is in terms of the entire working capital management side, is about how do you optimize your inventories, what kind of inventories do you hold on to, are you kind of looking at a make to order, are you kind of looking at stuff which is made to stock, what kind of, can you have a practice of a just-in-time inventory to be held on. Very, very standard practices available in the manufacturing sector if you want to reduce your inventories. We, for example, we use quite a bit of packaging material. I come from the cosmetics segment. I'm sure a lot of you would not know who I am. So I am the CFO for a private equity-based cosmetics company, and so cash is always tight for us. We need to manage the cash very, very clearly. We do use quite a bit of packaging materials in our products, in our production centers. We have ensured that our the suppliers of packaging products are based very close to our manufacturing plants, so that I do not need to necessarily hold inventory in my books. My payment cycle actually only starts on once the time the inventory hits my books and not before. While at the similar point in time, I am constantly sitting on inventory at the supplier's books per se. So these are all innovative areas through which you are also able to manage your entire payment cycle. You are able to ensure that there are no stoppages happening on your production, and you are able to ensure that the product is available to the consumer as and when it is, with the minimum possible working capital requirement. So some of the innovative ideas that we have kind of picked up. Areas which are typically towards, let's say, the AR related activities, which is more about the accounts receivable, which depending on the risk profile of your customers, you are able to ensure that the credits are not provided to some of the parties. There are the goods are only supplied against advances. There are some areas where you kind of extended credits, but but overall, I think it's all about how you are measuring it, how you are defining your problem, and effectively what are the steps that you are initiating to undertake. Your collection processes are in place and ensuring your ARs are under control. The other obviously is the fact that on your payable side, the best area is how do you negotiate better? How do you ensure that your terms of trade is in your favor? In today's parlance, from an MSME perspective, you cannot pay beyond 45 days under regulation. But for other players, you can definitely extend. You should look at how do you extend the credits happening in the market. And also the fact that how do you create a name for yourself that you are the right paymaster, which is happening in time. If you actually commit a 45 days payment cycle but you are ending in 90 days, as a company, the supplier network would have anyway discounted you and the prices would have been quoted based on this understanding. So how do you create that credibility for yourself as a company? So that's largely into the operating cash flow. And obviously I'm not getting into other areas which are typically the operating cycles, whether it is a payments happening on a prepaid model, it's a prepaid model typically, things like an AMC is obviously paid out at one go at the beginning of the year. Insurance again paid in advance. Is there a way by which you can have a quarterly payout for insurance? Believe me, we have done it. For a number of our policies, we've been able to negotiate with our insurance partners to say, I'm going to pay you. In some policies it is 6 months, in some policies it is quarterly, which helps us to manage the cash flow better. So I'm sure a lot of you would have undertaken some of the similar kind of steps in these areas. But that's again how do you manage on the operating side. The second, I think, the most very important thing which I have at least observed. The first we've talked about, which is all about how do you bring about efficiency in operations. The second area, which in today's world, and I think I used to talk about quite a few of these areas, there are quite a number of solutions available, tech solutions which are in place, which can be used very effectively to monitor performance, which very effectively be used to even deploy your funds in the right direction. There are a number of investment options available and it can help you to predict or at least give you the line of sight of what you really need to invest in, where you can invest in. So some of the solutions are being used very clearly by large fund houses. They are clearly being used by private equity players, VC funds, in terms of where the funds can be deployed on. What is better? Which one is better to go in? Should I invest into a startup? Should I invest into a unit towards biotech? Should I invest into an iron steel? These are all some of the algos can be defined to help you make a decision better. So it can help you to deploy your funds better. It can help you to get your investments or your returns better. And similarly, it can also help you in terms of understanding from a huge data set that you normally carry, where are the pain points in your business and what are the things that you need to be doing to ensure that you are able to bring efficiencies into those areas. Because if you start working on overall things, it becomes very difficult. When you start getting very pointed towards specific areas, it is easier for you to focus your energies on and to ensure that you get those right rectifications done in your systems. So that's one side of things. The other side, again, we talked about, this is more about the funding areas and the funding sources. Today, apart from obviously, there are a number of areas through which funding comes in. Be it the equity route, the debt route. Equity route again, it can be the promoters, promoter-led, the VC route, the private equity route, the private investors in play, HNIs who help you with equity investments. Obviously, people do not want to divest equity because you obviously have a tendency to lose control. The other areas can be also things like crowdfunding. These are all options which are available in today's segment, which earlier was not really there. Similarly, on the debt side, again, you have whether it's VCUs into debt funding, which is available. You have banks, you have NBFCs, you have private lenders, you have investors, you have lenders who are able to lend you products or lend you money without appropriate collateral security. During lunch, we were just discussing that if you have the right idea and you have the right story, you have a potential for an investor to make an investment into you. So it's all about whether you are carrying the right story with you, and you have the capability to pick up the funds. The funds are available in the market. So the reason to mention all of this is that there are various streams which typically finance professionals, cash flow, CFOs, financial controllers deploy to ensure that they are able to meet the demand of the cash outflow that is projected on. One very robust thing which happen in most of these companies is about planning. You plan for it, and then you ensure that your planning is also taken care of in terms of your fund efficiency, which you need to source on. If you look at the startup world, what happens? You're picking up money in bulk, 100 crores, 50 crores, but then what are you doing? You're also trying to look at what is your burn rate. Am I burning 4 crores a year? Or am I burning 4 crores a month? So how much time will my money last? And based on that, you have to start thinking about raising the second round. So all of this can only come in once you have the right planning mechanisms in place, which typically you would find this is one of the key areas which, if there's anything with the CFO sees or does not see, he does definitely sees whether money is there or not. And that's something which I have always seen, it's really there with them. So I'll kind of, I'm kind of literally at the end of my conversation with you guys. I just want to end with this last quote, which is again from Jack Welch, which talks about the fact that how important cash is. So if you were to look at the financial performance of a company, it's all about cash. So with this, I end my conversation with you people. Thank you for listening to me. Happy to take any questions that you may have.